Okay, so you've probably seen the headlines everywhere. Government shutdown. It sounds, pretty serious, but what does it actually mean when the US government closes? We're going to break down exactly what's going on, why it's happening, and most importantly, how it might affect you. So let's get right to it. What does a government shutdown actually mean? It's a pretty dramatic move for sure, but it doesn't mean the entire country just grinds to a halt. We're about to unpack all of it, the mechanics, the politics, and the real-world impact of this big stalemate in Washington. All right, let's start with the most immediate impact. For millions of people, a government shutdown isn't just some political headline. It's a locked gate and a sign that looks just like this. Yeah, this sign really cuts through all the political noise, doesn't it? One day, a national park is open for everyone to enjoy. The very next, it's not. This is the shutdown in action, and you see this kind of thing at public spaces all across the country. So, why does this even happen in the first place? Well, it all boils down to this. In the US system, Congress holds the purse strings. They control the money. And if they can't agree on bills to fund the government, and the president doesn't sign them, the money tap basically gets turned off for anything considered non-essential. And that forces a huge part of the federal government to just stop. So how do we get to this point? I mean, you'd think there's a process designed specifically to prevent shutdowns. And there is. Let's take a look at how that very system can break down. The process itself is actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, Congress passes the budget. Step 2, the president signs it, and the government stays open. The problem, as we're seeing right now, happens at step 3. When there's a really fundamental disagreement on what should be in those funding bills, the whole process just grinds to a halt. And this brings us right to the heart of the 2025 stalemate. On one side, you have the Democrats, who are really focused on these Affordable Care Act, or ACA, tax credits. They're arguing that if these aren't extended, health insurance costs are going to spike for millions of Americans. Then on the other side, you have Republicans who want a clean funding bill. Their argument is that a huge policy debate like this shouldn't be tied to the basic function of keeping the government running. Now, as part of this whole debate, you might have heard claims like this one from President Trump. The argument here frames the Democratic position as a push to give health care to undocumented immigrants. So let's take a second and look at the facts on that specific point. Okay, so according to multiple sources, including the Associated Press, federal law is actually really clear on this. Immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally are not eligible to get benefits through the ACA marketplace or through Medicaid. The proposal from the Democrats is focused on extending the existing tax credits for citizens and lawful residents who are already eligible. This political fight in Washington doesn't just stay in Washington. It creates this massive ripple effect that spreads all across the country. Let's look at who gets hit first, starting with the people right at the center of it all. Just think about that number for a second. Over 800,000 people. Furloughed is just a formal way of saying they're sent home without pay. Now, they usually get paid back after the shutdown ends, but in the meantime, their paychecks completely stop. That creates a huge amount of financial stress and uncertainty for hundreds of thousands of families. So what actually stays open and what closes? Well, the essential stuff, the services that protect life and property, they keep going. You'll still get your mail, Social Security checks will still go out, and air traffic controllers will stay on the job, though often without getting paid. But a ton of other things get shut down or seriously limited, everything from national parks to the government agencies that give us key economic data, like the monthly jobs report. And here is where it might start to affect you directly. Are you planning to buy a home with a federally backed loan? You can probably expect delays. Waiting on news about student loan forgiveness? Yep, more delays. Even the annual cost of living adjustment for Social Security could get postponed, all because the agency that has to calculate it is closed. But the impact, it goes even deeper than that, even touching on national security. The FBI Agents Association warns that a shutdown can seriously mess with investigations and weaken their ability to respond to threats. So the consequences, as it turns out, are incredibly far-reaching. I mean, all of this feels pretty disruptive, right? Which kind of begs the question, is this normal? Has this sort of thing happened before? Let's take a quick look back. So if you look at this table, it's pretty clear that government shutdowns aren't exactly new, but they have definitely become more frequent over the last few decades. The longest one on record was actually 35 days, back in 2018 and 2019, also under the Trump administration. It seems to have become a recurring feature of these high-stakes political fights. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. Beyond all the disruption and the political drama, what is the actual, real economic cost of shutting the government down? This number really puts the damage into perspective. The shutdown in 2013, which was actually shorter than the longest one, cost the U.S. economy an estimated 24 times billion dollars. That comes from lost productivity, disrupted services, and just a general slowdown in economic activity. That is a massive price to pay for a political stalemate. And that really leaves us with this final thought. When our political process leads to something like a shutdown, it's not some abstract problem. It has a real, quantifiable cost, right? You can measure it in furloughed workers, delayed services, and billions of dollars in lost economic growth. It really makes you wonder, when it's all said and done, who is really paying the price for all this?